November 1941, Schenectady, New York. Inside the American Locomotive Company works, a man walks the length of a machine that has not yet been named. He stops at the smoke box, the blunt, circular face at the front of the boiler, and draws two words in chalk. Nobody erases them. That machine ships west in December, crosses the Appalachians, crosses the Ohio River, crosses the Mississippi, and does not stop until it reaches Wyoming. It would not come back east for 85 years. Before we get into what this machine is and why the next 60 days are a single occurrence event, a quick note on how this video is structured. We are going to cover the 5 stops on this tour worth rearranging your life for, then break down the full route by region so you know exactly what to do based on where you live. Every date, every address, every logistics flag for the complete schedule is in the description below. Find your state, find your stop, then come back here for the context on why it matters. And if you want updates as 4014 moves east for the first time, subscribe to American Iron Works and hit the bell now before we get into the history. Union Pacific. Number 4014 is a 4884 articulated steam locomotive with 4 lead wheels, 8 driving wheels, 8 more driving wheels on a second set, and 4 trailing wheels. 24 wheels total across a frame that bends in the middle, because at 132 feet and 9 inches end to end, a rigid frame cannot negotiate the railroad's minimum curve radius of 288 feet. Total weight with the tender is 1.2 million pounds. Maximum horsepower at the drawbar is 6,290. Steam pressure at the boiler is 300 pounds per square inch. Boiler shell thickness is 1 3/8 inches of rolled steel. 25 of these machines were built for Union Pacific between 1941 and 1944 at the ALCO works in Schenectady, every one of them built exclusively for a single stretch of railroad in the American West. Otto Jabelmann, head of Union Pacific's Department of Research and Mechanical Standards, delivered the full engineering package to ALCO in early 1941. Working from that package, ALCO completed the design, fabricated all components, and had the first locomotive running under power in approximately 6 months. On September 4, 1941, number 4000 was delivered to Union Pacific in Omaha. Number 4014 followed in December. The requirement that drove the design was specific: haul a 3,600-ton loaded freight train over the Wasatch Range between Ogden, Utah and Cheyenne, Wyoming, without a helper locomotive on the grade. Before these machines existed, Union Pacific ran 2 locomotives on its heavy Wasatch assignments, one at the head end and one pushing at the rear. Doubling the power, doubled the crew, doubled the maintenance cost, and capped the through speed of every loaded manifest on that division. Jabelmann's answer was not to modify the grade. His answer was to build a machine powerful enough to make the second locomotive unnecessary. Union Pacific did not adapt its existing infrastructure to receive the new machines. Miles of lighter rail were replaced with heavier stock, turning facilities were resized across the division, and maintenance operations were restructured at Cheyenne and Green River. The railroad rebuilt itself around the locomotive. The class name Wasatches was the intended designation. An anonymous ALCO worker wrote Big Boy in chalk on the smoke box during construction, and no one at the company or at Union Pacific ever changed it. Number 4014 entered revenue service in December 1941, the same week the United States declared war on Japan, and the timing was not coincidental. Federal pressure on the railroads to expand freight capacity had been building since 1940, and the big boys went directly into wartime hauling, military equipment, raw materials, and fuel across the Wasatch. In regular service, trains of 4,200 tons were documented against the 3,600-ton design specification. On April 2, 1943, number 414 pulled 65 loaded freight cars between Ogden and Evanston, Wyoming, and peaked at 5,530 horsepower, a test figure that appeared in almost no public documentation for decades after the run. Revenue service continued for 18 years. Its last scheduled overhaul was in 1956. After that, it logged another 41,000 miles before its final revenue run on July 21, 1959. Official retirement came on December 7, 1961, 20 years to the day after Pearl Harbor, and Union Pacific donated it to the Rail Giants Train Museum at the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds in Pomona, California, where it sat on static display for 52 years. In 2013, Union Pacific reacquired it. The 5-year restoration in Cheyenne was not cosmetic. Boiler components were disassembled and rebuilt from the shell inward. Fuel conversion from coal, 56,000 pounds per run at original specification, to No. 5 fuel oil required a complete redesign of the combustion system. Thousands of machined parts that had not moved since the Eisenhower administration were replaced to original tolerances or fabricated from scratch. Estimated cost, $8 million. On May 4, 2019, No. 414 rolled out of the Cheyenne shop under its own power for the first time in 58 years. Every tour since that day has stayed west, in Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska, and Colorado, the territory where it spent its working life. The 2026 Coast to Coast tour changes that. For the first time since it left the ALCO factory in 1941, No. 414 crosses the Mississippi River under steam. Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, states it has never entered under power, are on the schedule. The eastern leg runs entirely on Norfolk Southern tracks, in a collaboration between two Class I railroads that has not happened before. Accompanying No. 4014 are Union Pacific's No. 16 the Abraham Lincoln commemorative locomotive, and No. 1776, built specifically to mark the nation's 250th anniversary. That machine was born in New York. It has never been back, and there are 5 specific places on this tour where you need to understand what you are standing next to. The first stop worth rearranging your life for is Omaha, Nebraska on May 30th. Public display runs from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon at 9th Street and Leavenworth Street. Free admission, no tickets required. Parking at the 555 Jones Street garage. Among all the formats on this schedule, the distinction between display days and whistle stops is the one piece of information that determines whether you get close or whether you watch from behind fencing. Whistle stops are 15 to 30-minute pauses at grade crossings and town depots, where the locomotive is running through and not stopped for you. Display days are the format where the locomotive is stationary, accessible, and present for hours. They are the format where you walk the length of it and begin to understand at physical scale what 132 feet and 1.2 million pounds actually means when it is sitting 10 feet in front of you. Omaha on May 30th is the first display day of the entire Eastern Run, and the last major display before the locomotive enters the denser stop schedule through Iowa and Illinois. For Midwest viewers, this is the window. The second stop is the Tunkhannock Creek Viaduct in Nicholson, Pennsylvania on June 13th at 10 in the morning. No tickets, no shuttle, free. Stand below the bridge on Route 11 and you are looking at the largest reinforced concrete railroad bridge in the world. 2,375 feet long, 240 feet above the creek bed, 300 feet above bedrock. 500 men built it around the clock from May 1912 to November 1915 for the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, as part of a 39-mile cutoff between Scranton and Binghamton that saved 1 full hour of freight time per run. When construction finished, it was the largest concrete structure on Earth. Theodore Dreiser saw it in 1916 and called it a thing colossal and impressive. The American Society of Civil Engineers designated it a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark in 1975. Park on Route 11, walk to the viewing area near Farnham Road east of the structure, and look up. A 1.2 million pound steam locomotive crossing that arch 240 feet overhead is a frame that does not appear anywhere else on this schedule. The approach from the west is audible before the locomotive is visible, and the exhaust note off the valley walls arrives several seconds before the engine reaches the first arch. When it does appear, moving at operating speed across those 10 arches with steam exhausting from the stack and the valley below you, the scale of both structures, the bridge and the locomotive, becomes legible in a way that photographs do not capture. Park early. The shoulder on Route 11 fills fast. The third stop is Steamtown National Historic Site in Scranton, Pennsylvania on June 15th and 16th, ticketed through Recreation.gov. Get those tickets now before this video ends. Number 4014 is operational. Number 4012, its sister locomotive built at the same ALCO Schenectady, works in November 1941 and delivered to Union Pacific that same December, has been on static display at Steamtown since the early 1980s after the National Park Service acquired it for the historic site. 8 big boys remain in existence anywhere in the country. When number 4014 pulls into Scranton on June 15th, 2 of those 8 will be standing in the same rail yard, a configuration that, by any available documentation, has not existed since these machines were in revenue service in the 1950s. 2 of the 8 surviving big boys in the world within a single photograph frame in one place for 2 weeks. That is what Steamtown in June represents. The National Park Service is managing tens of thousands of visitors. After the June 15th and 16th display days, number 4014 remains at Steamtown through June 30th for a boiler wash and scheduled maintenance. Both locomotives will be on site during ticketed park hours throughout that window. June 15th and 16th are the UP closed days. Address: Steamtown National Historic Site, 350 Cliff Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania. The fourth stop is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on July 4th and 5th, Intrepid Avenue and League Island Boulevard. Free admission, 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, both days. Built in December 1941 to haul wartime freight over the Wasatch Range, number 4014 will be on display in the city where the country that fought that war declared its existence. The display comes on the 250th anniversary of that declaration, 4 miles from Independence Hall. Arrive before the display opens. The city of Philadelphia, where the Declaration of Independence was signed, where the Liberty Bell cracked under its own weight, and where the Continental Congress voted to create the country this locomotive was built to defend, will spend 2 days in July of 2026 as the backdrop for a £1.2 million steam engine that entered service the week America went to war. That particular alignment was not planned. It arrived with the schedule. The fifth stop is the Altoona, Pennsylvania corridor. 3 days, 1 historic engineering site, and 1 sold-out event that still has a free alternative. On July 8th, the locomotive arrives at the Railroaders Memorial Museum at 1200 9th Avenue in Altoona at 5:15 in the evening. Admission is free. Public display days run on July 9th and 10th from 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. There are shuttles from Peoples Natural Gas Field. There is no parking at the display site, and that rule is strictly enforced. Then July 11th brings the Horseshoe Curve. Designed by Pennsylvania Railroad Chief Engineer J. Edgar Thompson between 1851 and 1854, the Horseshoe Curve bends 2,375 feet around the face of the Allegheny Mountains at a 1.8% grade, rising 122 feet from the valley floor to the summit at Cresson without a switchback or an inclined plane. Before this curve existed, crossing the Alleghenies by rail required freight to be transferred across 10 separate inclined planes on the old State Works route, a process that consumed an entire day and limited train weight to what the cable ropes could hold. Thompson's alignment eliminated all of it and cut Philadelphia to Pittsburgh travel time from 4 days to 13 hours, turning Altoona from a hamlet into one of the great railroad cities in American history. It became a National Historic Landmark in 1966. More than 50 Norfolk Southern freight trains use it every day. The ticketed viewing event for number 4014's July 11th passage is sold out through railroadcity.org. Cresson Railroad Park at 501 Front Street, the very next public stop on the schedule, arriving at 10:45 in the morning, is free and open to everyone. Altoona is the only corridor on this entire tour where the locomotive runs through a landscape that was engineered for the steam era and has not been fundamentally altered since. Now the regional breakdown, what your move is based on where you live. Nebraska runs from May 25th through the 29th. May 28th is the strongest single day in Nebraska. Gothenburg at 10:30 in the morning, Overton at noon, Kearney at 1:15 in the afternoon, and Grand Island at 3:15 in the afternoon. Drive ahead between stops and wait at the next crossing. The leapfrog approach gives you 3 or 4 legitimate views in a single day on routes like this one. What you are watching at a whistle stop is different from a display day in a specific way. The locomotive is running, under load, in its element. The exhaust note from a big boy at speed, 300 pounds per square inch of steam driving 4 cylinders simultaneously, is audible from a considerable distance and does not sound like anything else. Position yourself ahead of the crossing and wait. Iowa and Illinois run May 31st through June 3rd. Carroll, Iowa is on May 31st at the Old Depot, 407 West 5th Street. The stop is scheduled for 1 in the afternoon, and it is the best small-town stop in Iowa. Rochelle Railroad Park in Illinois is on June 2nd at 3 in the afternoon. It is a dedicated train-watching facility with natural approach vantage from multiple angles. West Chicago is on June 3rd and is Metra only. There is no parking at the display site. Take the Union Pacific West Line to West Chicago Station. The display runs from 9 to 3. Indiana and Ohio run from June 5th through the 8th. Argos, Indiana, on June 5th at 2:15 in the afternoon, marks the first time this locomotive has entered Indiana under steam. Fostoria Iron Triangle Rail Park, 499 South Poplar Street, on June 6th at 2 in the afternoon, is one of the strongest railfan vantage locations in the Midwest, regardless of what is running through it on any given day. Euclid, Ohio, on June 8th at 2:30 in the afternoon is the best option for the Cleveland area viewer. Upstate New York runs June 9th through the 12th. June 9th is a 2-stop sequence across the state line, northeast Pennsylvania, near the Lakeshore Railway Museum at 11:25 in the morning. Then Ripley, New York on State Street at noon. That crossing is the first time this machine has touched New York State since ALCO shipped it west in 1941. Letchworth State Park on June 11th at 12:20 in the afternoon puts the locomotive over the Genesee River Arch Bridge inside the gorge. Park admission is required, and the terrain framing there is unlike any other stop on the full schedule. Hornell, New York at the Erie Depot Museum on June 11th at 2 in the afternoon is the strongest fixed stop in upstate New York. July 2nd in Pennsylvania, with Reading and Northern Outer Station at 2:15 and Pottstown at 4:15. That day is the preparation day for Philadelphia area viewers ahead of the July 4th display. The return leg runs from Missouri through Colorado, July 18th through the 29th. St. Louis Union Station on July 19th is the strongest stop on the return. There is a free display from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon at 1820 Market Street, one of the great surviving railroad stations in the country. Kansas City Union Station on July 22nd runs public viewing in 2 windows, 9 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, then 6 to 8 in the evening. Greeley, Colorado on July 29th, 10th Street Crossing, 1:15 in the afternoon, is the final public stop before the locomotive returns to Cheyenne. 4 rules. Union Pacific does not put on the front page of its schedule. 1. Minimum distance from the tracks is 25 feet at every stop, including display days. A steam locomotive in motion vents live steam from cylinder cocks during startup and movement, and the 25-foot line is the functional margin. 2. The schedule drifts. The times listed are arrival targets, not guarantees. Build 30 minutes of buffer around any whistle stop and arrive early. Number 3. Drones are prohibited at all stops. Number 4. Check the Union Pacific steam tracking page the morning of your visit. It goes active as the tour begins and shows current position in real time. Before this video closes, Drop a comment with where you are planning to catch it. State, city, stop date. Tell us where you will be standing when number 414 comes through. American Iron Works is following this tour as it moves east for the first time. When number 4014 crosses into Ohio on June 6th, when it reaches Philadelphia on July 4th, and when it stands in the same yard as number 4012 at Steamtown, which is the only place on Earth where two big boys can appear in the same frame, we will cover it. Subscribe to American Iron Works and hit the notification bell. The complete schedule is in the description. Number 4014 was built in New York in 1941, shipped west, and ran 1,031,205 miles without once returning. Of the 25 big boys built, 17 were scrapped. 7 of the 8 that survived retirement are in museums. They remain stationary, silent, and never to move again under their own power. Number 414 is the one that runs. This tour is the first time in 85 years it has come back to the states that built it, through the industrial corridors that shaped the country it was made to serve. When Union Pacific turns it west at the end of July and it crosses back over the Mississippi, that will be the last time. There is no scheduled return. This summer is the exception. It does not repeat.